Hello, and welcome to Making Creativity Pay, the podcast where we talk to people in creative industries about how they promote and market their work. I'm Dan Barnett, and on this episode I spoke with musical comedian Holly Spillar. We talk about her experience as a finalist at this year's Musical Comedy Awards, the importance of the Keep It Fringe Fund, and the challenges faced by trying to balance work and creativity, especially in London, and how this fits in with her upcoming Fringe show, Tall Child. I started by asking Holly to give a quick intro about herself.
I'm Holly Spillar, artist, comedian, actress, and workshop facilitator. And yeah, I'm making my second Fringe show at the moment. I'm a low income background artist, and like a lot of artists doing Fringe, I've got, until recently had two jobs. I work in retail, which I still work in, and I worked in childcare until about 3 weeks ago.
Yes, so you've got like you said, you've got your second show coming up in August. It's middle of May at the moment. How are things going with it?
Yeah, so it's been really hard. I'm really enjoying it. So this is my second show. It's called Tall Child, and it's the first show that I've had a producer who's paid and a PR for the first time. And so it's the show really I've been given the most opportunity with. But out of my first and second show, it's the show I've had the least time to make because of my work around it. And so it's been a really interesting journey making it, and it's by no means finished. But yeah, it's going okay. I think I'm doing my fourth work in progress next month. And so we've got time. But yeah, it's been really interesting. It's a show that I'm sure we'll talk about later is about barriers to making art. And so the fact that I've had so many while making it isn't like out of what the show's about. And so I guess that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've spoke to other guests and they've kind of said that with the Fringe, it's impossible to do too much work. There's always more that you could be doing. I mean, how difficult is that to kind of, you said, balance the day job with work in progress? In an ideal world, would you be doing a work in progress every Saturday, say, for example, to kind of hone it?
Yeah, I think I am not every Saturday, because I think because I've never had like time to write. I've always been writing either if, let's say I'm working in retail and my shift starts at 10, I'll write from like 7 to 9 and then leave for my shift, and then I'll come back at like 7 p.m. and I'll write before I eat and after I eat. And so I've never had set writing time, which has meant that like I've never thought, oh yeah, if I did a work in progress every week, because it wouldn't have changed. But like, I definitely would want to be doing them more often than I have been. But yeah, it's tricky. I think the only reason I managed to get the show to like a 45-minute, 50-minute bit was because I got ill, and so had to have, just before my first work in progress, I got really sick, had like a chest infection, so I couldn't go to work for like 4 days, because I was on antibiotics. And it was great because I couldn't talk, but I could write the show. And so I ended up accidentally having time to write. And that's happened a couple of times, or I've had to like very last minute go, oh, I've got a gig. Can anyone cover my shift? Because I want like to have a day to work on it before the show. And which I know is normal, but has made it quite tricky. But yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. And I've definitely learned a lot about how efficiently I can and can't work because of that. But yeah, definitely ideally for doing more whips.
You were kind of saying, kind of trying to juggle everything. I mean, how hard was it to kind of get that month off to do Edinburgh?
So the first time I did Edinburgh, I was very lucky. I've been in the same retail job for 5 years. And the second job I did, which was workshops, non-profit workshops for kids, was freelance. And so it wasn't really in the summer, but the bits that were, I could be like, it's okay, someone else can do that. And the retail job I'd had for 5 years, my manager is, I think, one of the best persons that has ever existed. And so was fine to let me go for a month and then sort of rejoin the company when I left Fringe. But this year I've tactfully not told my jobs that I'm going, which I was really worried about. And I was like, I might have to give notice, or I might have to feign a strange illness. But that hasn't happened because I lost my job 3 weeks ago out of nowhere. And so the only job I've had to worry about is the retail job. But because I've lost my other job, I now will not be able to, I've got to move home from London. And so in a weird roundabout way, I now don't actually have to tell anyone I'm doing Fringe, because I won't have either of the jobs that would have been upset about that. So it's been financially much, much more difficult, but logistically, I've not had to have scary conversations that I was dreading having.
For kind of creative work in general, how important in creative is London generally? You know, if you kind of want to do anything, do you have to be in London? You know, how important is it?
See, I still don't know, because I'm from Bournemouth, and until like a year ago, me and my mum just lived in our little rented flat we'd lived in for like 22 years in Bournemouth. And other than when I went to uni, I graduated into the pandemic and went home and got sort of, like a lot of people did, sort of stuck there because the rent's a lot cheaper there. But yeah, so I'd been building up to moving to London for 4 years, because all of my creative friends lived in London. Every time I did a gig, it was in London. When I did Soho Theatre, it was in London. So all of those things, I was like, oh yeah, if I want this, I've got to go there. But as a lot of my friends in regional towns and Dorset warned me, they were like, well, when you move to London, it won't be like that though, because you'll be working so much that you won't do anything. And I was like, but I'll be in London. But no, it has happened. Like, I got here, and the slight more flexibility I had in Bournemouth with like not working for 1 week because I wanted to come up and do a show, but it's okay because I don't have to make as much money, was gone. And I've always lived month to month, but I was living month to month in London, still am, like to the penny. And so haven't done hardly any gigs because I've been shattered by, because again, I chose 2 bad jobs. I chose retail in one of the busiest shops in London, and childcare.
Yes, they're not the kind of things that you can kind of coast through.
No. So it's been great, because I think the reason I got my PR and my producer was because I was in London, because being here, word of mouth meant I knew that there was a scratch at Pleasance that I could apply for that I wouldn't have known about, because people were talking about it. And I knew that there was an opportunity coming up with this producer who's building his roster, Charlie from Big Head, if you happen to know him. But I wouldn't have known that if I was in Bournemouth. And so like being around the buzz of it has felt important. But work-wise, I don't think I've done any more than I would have done in Bournemouth. Just because, as everyone knows, the London rental market is insane. And the cost of living crisis was visible in Bournemouth, of course, as it is everywhere, from prices of everything. But in London, I do feel like things I buy week to week seem to change by about, I'm sure they don't, but seem to change by about like 60p. And I'm like, what? And so, yeah, I feel like most of my mind has been full of like, how am I even doing this? I don't know. Which could have been space taken up by show if I still lived in my beautiful regional town.
I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit more detail about the show itself and kind of the development of it and the aims for it.
Yeah, I'd love to. So this show is called Tall Child, and I named it before I wrote it, which is why it's called Tall Child. But it's partly because it's about being from a lower income background. It's about artists from working class and low income backgrounds, and how often people in art that are from different slightly different backgrounds, or venues that forget lower income artists, which is fairly common, talk to you sometimes like you're a child, or there's a imagined incompetence that comes with your art being a little bit more DIY because you've made it around 2 jobs, or a little bit less developed than some people that have had months to build a show. And people forget that that's sometimes a background difference and not incompetence. And so you get babied a bit. And I think also when I was originally writing this show, it's not so much anymore, but there's going to be a bit more about like neurodiversity and how that's worked in my, with, for want of a better word, normal jobs as well. So I get talks to a child quite a lot, even in retail, because I will go about things in a way that maybe other people wouldn't, and I'll leave things in places and forget things. And so people are like, oh, you remind me of my little sister who is but 5 years old, like that kind of a thing. And so it's sort of a riff on that. And yeah, it's a show sort of about, how the class divide everywhere, but in Britain, because that's my experience of it, and how it's growing and the middle's becoming a lot thinner where we are at the moment, and how that translates to the world of professional art and barriers to professional art, and the dangers of pushing out those voices. And it's very silly. It's a silly show. And I've worked with insanely wealthy children in the last year and in my childcare job, and children from disadvantaged schools and disadvantaged backgrounds. And so I've been inside the houses of billionaires and with kids that this is the free club that I run is the only thing that they'll do in a week, because they've got 5 siblings and there's just no chance of respite for their parents to be doing anything else. And so I think I've seen a massive spectrum of class and accessibility for things. And I've seen the ugly of both of those things and the difficulties for people in both of those situations. And I wanted to sort of apply that to the world of art and to the situation that we have going on at the moment in the UK, and be like, is it a show? It's for the audience to decide. But yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you were recently in the Musical Comedy Awards. Is the show a mix of music and comedy?
Yeah, so I have a loop pedal, a vocal loop pedal that I love and is a bit of a crutch. And I got it I was, of course, on like max bursary for uni. And then I also got a top-up bursary of £250 a term. And the loop pedal was £250. So I bought that at uni, and everything I've made since has been on it, because I haven't bought anything else. I haven't made any money from art, ironically, on the Making Creativity Pay podcast. Sorry. But yeah, so everything I've made is on my Boss V20 loop pedal, which I recommend if you want a loop pedal, which I think everyone should get. They're really fun. And so I create like sort of soundscapes and harmonies, and I parody different artists in order to make like a silly song or a political point. Like in this show, I do a rap by Charlie XCX song about Vet 365, because why not? I do a Chapel Roan vibe song about living inside a Waitrose in Fleet service stations. So lots of silly things. But yeah, but music background first, then comedy. And so I normally write a load of songs and then work out where if they can fit into the show or what they look like.
Yeah. I mean, how does it differ, say, between doing a 20-minute set as opposed to an hour show in terms of the balance between songs and not songs, for want of a better word?
Yeah, so it's a pretty even split. I'd say it's slightly more. I don't think what I do is stand-up comedy. I don't think I know what it is that I do, but I think it's more spoken, like narrative with a story and an anecdote and a bit of an arc, slightly more than it is music. But there are like normally like 6 or 7 songs in my show that are anything from 30 seconds to 3 minutes long. And yeah, so it's pretty even split. But when I do, I think it means when I'm on circuit, if I do like a normal gig, I will sometimes just be like, here are 2 songs, and I'll introduce them with 1 line, and then I'm going to get out of your way so the next person can come on. I rarely will just do like some stand-up for 10 minutes that hasn't got a song, because I think it makes me anxious. And I feel like even if what I say isn't funny, people are often impressed by the loop pedal, because people don't see it very often in comedy. There's lots of comedians that use them, but they're not as often seen. And so I think where an audience is like, this isn't really for me, this 10 minutes, they're like, but I don't know where the noises are coming from. And so it's, yeah, hopefully it gives something interesting, even if you aren't into Charlie XCX, Vet 365.
Cool. And how was the experience of the Musical Comedy Awards?
Oh, it was lovely. I felt very lucky to have got to the final the first time I did it. I was very nervous and I loved the heats. The heats, if you haven't been before, feel really intimate. There's like 150 people and they're in like a little room with a bar. They're lovely and you have like an insane amount of acts. It feels like there's probably not this many, but it feels like there's up 20 acts in like the space of like 4 hours or something. And it's great because I think as a musical comedian, you're often the only musical comedian on a bill so that there's variety. And so you don't meet each other because they're just not around. And so you've no idea what anyone else is doing. And so I loved it because I could see all these people that were incredible and doing stuff I never would have thought of and also don't have the know-how to do, like using amazing visuals. I don't play any instruments, so people that are incredible on the piano and doing all of this, like the winners of this year were just amazing and I never would have found them had I not been in the final. But yeah, I loved it. I found the final very like daunting because it was the biggest room I'd ever been in, which I think is the case for quite a few people that do musical comedy awards. They're not often like so established that you've done the Bloomsbury Theatre. But yes, I found that really daunting, but such a positive experience to be allowed to take up space in that space for 7 minutes.
You were saying it's your second show at the Fringe. What would you kind of say is going to be the difference this time? I mean, if you could almost go back and say to your 2023 you, these are the things you need to do, and what are the kind of key things you've kind of learned from doing it once already?
I think the key thing would be rest your voice, because I got mad vocal strain after the first Fringe because I haven't been vocally trained since I was 14, and so I don't sing properly and I can't afford a vocal coach, so I really hurt myself doing the Fringe. And also because I was so happy to be there because I'd wanted to do it for so long that I just wanted to see everything and be everywhere and soak it all up and be up until late at night and just giggling around the city, which was amazing, but cost me my health. And so I think be careful. And if I wake up and I've got a dodgy voice, you can't do a show. I think you've got to treat it like my friends that do musical theatre professionally. If they wake up and their voice is bad, they don't do the show because they risk losing a week of performance. And I didn't do that. I just forced myself, and the octaves of my songs got like lower and lower and lower. And I was like, I'm sure this is a healthy thing. So I think that would be the main takeaway. But no, I think it's weird because like the first time I did it, it was me and my unpaid producer, Brightmouth, my friend Nathan from uni. And we were three of us living in one room. And we were just so excited to be there that we weren't really worried. We knew we couldn't afford PR. We knew that it was only us flying, and we could really only fly in for like an hour because we were going to get burnout doing the show and doing everything else as well. And we didn't have a director or anyone. And so we couldn't have really done any better than we did, other than maybe that'd be better on social media. I'm really bad at social media. But
that's one thing I was going to ask, actually, because obviously it's a kind of difficult balance for your kind of thing in that, you know, kind of a comedy song probably fits perfectly for something like Instagram, but then you're burning your material. So that must be a kind of difficult balance to kind of, it's probably a great way for people to get to know you, to like you and kind of be interested, but almost then they've, in a nice way, they've already seen it.
Yeah, I think I felt that a bit with Whole because it was a narrative show about something very specific. The bits that were like big comic relief moments, I was like, if I ruin these, then for those people that aren't interested in the narrative of the show, there is no payoff. But I think now I'm less worried about that. Like I would quite happily put any clip up of Tall Child. But a lot of it, again, because I'm still quite new. This is only my second show. I only started really doing comedy in like the spring before I did Whole in 2023. I have too much context. Well, maybe not too much, but I have a lot of context going into the show. I set up a load of context and I've got like a load of songs that feed into that. And so only some of them work without a callback to previous context. And the ones that do, I haven't performed enough because I haven't had time to get good clips. And so it's one of the things a really lovely PR, Julian Hall, who I'm very lucky to have, has been like, come on, you need more clips. And I'm like, I know, Julian, this is a great opportunity. We need them, but I'm just not doing anything. Which is, but I'm hoping to get more clips. I hope that wasn't too rambling.
No, that's absolutely fine. Because yes, it's just such a hard thing to do. So, you've got to, one, you've got to do the show. That's obviously the most important thing. Then you've got to book in work in progress, try and sell tickets for the work in progress, do your day jobs. And then you kind of think, oh yes, and then I'll record some videos for social media and kind of put them out and edit them and everything else as well. And yes, it's kind of extremely difficult to kind of find that balance.
Yeah, I think I haven't found that balance. I think that's why it's been a bit more tricky this year. I definitely haven't cracked it. Again, now I've lost one of the 2 jobs I was working. Like the last month of my life that should have been building a better show has been looking for jobs. And it's only now that I'm like, oh, it's sort of too late because I'm already not going to make my rent. I've got to go. That it's given me a weird freedom because I've now got just the one job. And so now hopefully I can do things like get someone to help me edit a clip and write a little bit more and stuff. But yes.
Absolutely. So on Instagram, you were talking about kind of looking for submissions or details from people, working class, low-income acts, and you were kind of looking to include that in a song. I was interested to kind of understand the reason for doing it, but that's quite an unusual kind of thing. I mean, where did the kind of idea for that come about?
I think because my favourite comedians aren't doing Fringe this year because they can't afford to go. And that really upset me because they have shows that have been finished for, well, one of them almost a year. Obviously she's still working on it, still doing stuff, but they have work that is, in my opinion, would absolutely storm the Fringe, but they can't do it. And I think I've been given, if I was given PR and all of this stuff in my first show that I'd been working on for so long, it would have been great because that show was so developed. But this show, I'm really struggling with, and I've got all these opportunities at a time where I will have a show, and I'm really proud of it and excited to show people, and it will be good quality because it has to be. But I think partly because I fear that I'm making a show about class, and if it's not an incredible show, or it's not the best thing I've ever made, and I've given all these opportunities, I've got to use them because I'd be deboed if nothing good came of it. And so so partly because of that, and also partly because the whole point of this show is that I love the Fringe, but the Fringe is not accessible at all and is becoming a more and more class exclusive sport. And I think the further we get into the sticky situation we're all in at the moment, the more Fringe will become just a very certain group of people who are incredibly talented, I'm sure, but it's not accessible. And so I just wanted to, at the end of the show, sing and spell the names of a load of working class comedians and artists that are at the Fringe with their venues and venue times, and some that aren't at the Fringe with their Instagram ats. And the song goes, can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, the song goes get your phones out, get your fucking phones out, turn your phones on, write these names down. And it loops up in the background. It sounds very nice and twinkly, and it just keeps going. And so the audience do have to, at the end of my show, get their phones out, and they do have to write. And obviously some of them won't. They don't have to. I'm not holding anyone hostage. But inevitably some of them will. And I just think that's a nice thing. And I have PR. I don't have anything else. And it's going to be really hard to fill my room. But it's also going to be incredibly hard for all of my friends and the working class artists that got in touch with me to fill their rooms. And if anyone's listening to this and you want to have your name sung at the end of a show, it's on Underbelly, Bristo Square, Dexter's at 5:45, plug. But that's the time slot it'll be sung in. And so, yeah, it'll be the end of that. So if you're on later than that, brilliant, because maybe we could send people straight to you. And if you're at the same time slot of that or earlier, then hopefully then they'll come in time after. But I'm hoping, yeah, maybe throughout the Fringe it will get longer and longer and longer. I'm trying to work out, because I only did it at Work in Progress the other day, but I'm very sure it's happening. And yeah, I don't know, it just makes me happy. It makes me happy saying people's names and enforcing people, like coming up to people and being like, this person, are you writing it down? Are you writing it down?
Sounds like a nice idea. I was listening to Tom Mayhew, who's on a different podcast, and he was kind of saying that, the difficulty is because you've got to pay so much up front. You might have enough confidence in you and your show that you will, you won't lose money. You'll make it back. But because you don't have that upfront chunk to pay and then wait 6 months to get it back, that's what kind of stops so many people.
Yeah, and that's if you get it back. I think there's definitely some cases I've heard where you don't get that money back. It mysteriously disappears into an artistic void somewhere, and you're like, oh, I don't have the power to do anything about that. But I think, yeah, if you do get it back often, it's not enough, especially if you're like me, if you're a small artist. I'm very lucky to have a slot at Underbelly. I feel incredibly privileged to have got that slot, but I almost certainly won't make profit from Fringe. A lot of people don't. But in that case, I've been very lucky. I've got a $2,500 bursary from Keep It Fringe, which has allowed me to get PR, and I've got a $2,500 loan from some artists that they know it's going to take me like a year and a half to pay them back. We've got a contract, which is the only way I did Fringe last time, and it took me so long to pay it back. And so I think that's disheartening, because you're leaving in debt. And I think that's normal for a lot of businesses. Like when I talk to my friends that work in retail, I'm like, well, if you started a small business, you might also not be making profit for a while, and you would have to take these risks if you were selling candles or clothing and stuff like that. You'd have to take those risks. So I'm just doing that. But it does feel insane. I think especially when there's a lot of outside art. Most of my friends are outside of art, and community is in retail and childcare, and it's hard to explain sometimes to those people why you're doing it, because it looks from an outside perspective it looks how it is. It looks like you go home from your job and you sit in your room at your desk and you write some songs and you draw a little picture of what you think if everything's going to look like, and then you make yourself $5,000 in debt, which just feels feels insane, especially when the market's so saturated. Nobody's asked you to do this. You're not making a product that's going to revolutionize kitchenware. I'm making a show that I think's important, but is probably a lot of shows. And I think there's value in that, but it is an insane thing to try and get people to understand.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult, part of what this is about is kind of where art meets business, and that gets a bit icky. With the show, do you have, in some ways the art itself should be the goal, but do you have a goal for what you want from the Fringe?
Yes. So my goal with my first show, and my goal from when I was at uni when I started writing it, was that I wanted to do Soho theatre. That was my very specific goal. I was I love everything that's on there. I really respect that venue. It feels like it's a sort of rite of passage, and I managed it. And so that was that. And I was knew I wasn't really going to get much else out of the Fringe with no PR. And I did that, and I was haha. And with this Fringe, I think the goal is similarly to get some sort of London transfer, and to ideally I think this show, and I think that's the case for a lot of people's second shows, especially when they're made with no budget, is just to get the word out. I want people to be oh, Holly's a writer and we really like how she writes. Maybe she could write for us in the future. Maybe I want her to be in this thing with me. Like, I just love it to open more doors creatively and people to understand what my like sort of creative voice is and my performance register is. And yeah, I'd love to do more things creatively, whether they're like films, a theatre transfer, Tall Child or Whole. I want my life to be a more full of art than and performing and writing and acting and doing all of that, rather than majority retail, occasionally a song, I think is the goal. If I could flip that script or at least manage a half and half split next year, that would be sick.
Yeah. I mean that's very much kind of, from my side of the point of the podcast. It's not about, those 10 million views on YouTube and big promotions. It's just literally being able to kind of do enough to kind of focus on the work. And I think, that is, so it's kind of obviously the ability to kind of do what you enjoy, do what you're good at, and, be able to pay the bills is kind of, it's tough, but it's kind of the dream. Yeah, absolutely. You're talking about, kind of taking the show around. I know you did that with Whole, with kind of a few places. I think it was like Plymouth and various others. I mean, how hard was it to kind of get it into a theatre? Is it just kind of, I've got this idea, I want it on, and they're like, yes? Or, how hard do you have to kind of push for them to kind of take you on?
I think it really depends where you're trying to do it. Like, me and my producer were like, for Soho, we were just constantly messaging them and annoying them and being like, leave. And with Barbican, I've forgotten her surname, Laura. You've interviewed her. She used to work at Film Barbican. She does Lynn Faces.
Oh, Laura Horton.
I love Laura Horton. She was working there at the time, and I'd seen Lynn Faces at Edinburgh and was familiar with Breathmas in the work that she'd done before. And so getting in Plymouth at the time that she was programming there was a lot easier. And also there was another artist. The show Whole was about a condition that's quite common that I had. And Laura's very good friends with another amazing artist that writes about that. And so it worked really well because we could sort of couple that then together with workshops. So we could build a package easily. Whereas like for other theatres that I haven't heard back from, I think it's very daunting, especially when it's in an area, let's say like Manchester or something, that I don't have any network. When you've got no PR and no network, you're not going to sell there. and so they're very reluctant to put you on. But I completely understand why. But yeah, it made that a little bit trickier. But no, I think I should have reached out a lot more than I did. But I had to cancel quite a lot of those shows post the first Fringe I did, because I got so ill afterwards that a lot of them, like, I had to push back Soho. I had to cancel quite a few because I lost my voice completely. I couldn't speak and it wouldn't have been entertaining.
I was just going to say, so obviously the tickets are on sale now. Are you checking regularly? Do you kind of not even think about that yet? I know it's very early days and, an awful lot is kind of on the day, but
I think I'm so small that for a tall child that I don't think there's any point in that, because I doubt I've sold any tickets yet, other than maybe like one friend who already lives in Edinburgh and is very supportive. But I doubt I've sold any. And so I don't really look. I think last time I did Fringe, I looked in the morning because I wanted to know what vibe of the show it would be. Because obviously if I've got 6 people, I'm not going to come at them like a mad thing because I don't want them to be scared. And so I've got to slightly change my tone so it's still really funny and it's the best of the show that I can make it. But it is a different thing than if you've got 50 people. And so I think I just check numbers in the morning and just before the show. And hopefully, my producer was doing that for me last year, so I'm sure Charlie will tell me. And I like to know if I've got press in, because I think that's helpful for me. But yeah, other than that, no. I mean, I hope that I get more than 6 people, or at least do for half a bit. But if I don't, then I will still make them write some names down. And so,
yeah, I guess it's a nice time. I was talking to another performer who's, I think, on like 5:20. It's a similar kind of time in that you kind of hope then to kind of get the people who would normally go home, or who maybe stay for one show and then go home. So it's kind of a nice kind of point. I mean, when you're looking to flyer it, are you flyering like the hour or two before, or are you kind of focusing on the show then and flyering in the morning, or a bit of mix?
So flyering makes me very scared and very sad, and it reminds me slightly too much of my retail job. And so I won't be flyering in like the couple of hours going up to the show. If I've got any money spare, I'll pay someone to do that for me, but won't be every day. But I'll more likely flyer like a few hours before, let's say like at 2:00, like to 3, and do as much as I can, then try to enlist some people to help me, because I think otherwise, I think also a lot of people that are neurodivergent find this, but my small talk and even the way I'm talking now is not great for pitching and for making, like I pause a lot. I stare at people quite a lot, hoping that they'll just let me in. And so I don't think I'm great at flyering, and I wouldn't want to. I'm scared I'm going to put people off by being like, a show, please, sir, please. I don't want to come across underconfident, and then they look at the flyer and they're like, hang on a second, is that the woman that's in the show? Oh no, if she's like that, that's going to be painful. I can't watch that. Yeah.
But no, I'm sure you'll be fine. Have you got poster and everything all done, dusted, ready to go?
Not done, dusted. We've done the photo shoot and we're currently editing it. Charlie, my producer, luckily for me, he's very good at editing things, and so he's going to make the poster. But yes, it's cute. Again, I haven't finished the show, so it's difficult for me to make a poster that's properly like 100% captures it. But it definitely gives tall child, but not a child. I think my worry with posters was that people were going to direct them to be infantilizing, and the show's nothing to do with that at all. And I would hate that. It'll be like my worst nightmare would be if for a viewer was like, infantilizing. I'd be like, oh, I've quit now. And so yeah, I hope it doesn't give that. But yeah, I think it's fun. It's got one of those children's little tyke cars in it, and I'm sort of sat on it looking miserable.
Many thanks to Holly for taking part. You can find more details in the show notes about where to find Holly online, as well as details about her Fringe show and remaining work in progresses. Thanks for listening.